Thank you for joining us, and I'm Dennis Williams from CashMap Consulting, and thank you for taking the time to come back and tune in to Money Talk Viewpoint. And it's my pleasure to welcome back Mr. Charles Dent from Xelantt Profit Strategies. As a former HR executive myself, this kind of resonates in my head of what you're saying. And the other item that I would ask as a part of that is, does that include, when you bring a new person on board, having performance benchmarks at key points as that new employee comes on board, so there's just crystal clear clarity of what's expected by when, so the trainer and the trainee are both laser focused on where they are and where they're going next?
Yes, for sure. You know, the worst thing that can happen with a new employee, they're just sitting around trying to figure out what to do next. And that happens way too often. And, you know, it's the same thing. You know, you talk about first impressions. Well, maybe the interview process was great. But when that new employee starts and they realize, wait a minute, there's something missing here. I'm just sitting around twiddling my thumbs. I don't know what to do next. Even the person that's training them, they don't know where to lead them and how to train them. And by having everything buttoned up, then there is an expectation as well as some guardrails and milestones that you're able to put in place in order to train those new employees and understand where they should be and when they should be there and what type of results they should be producing. And it becomes crystal clear also from the standpoint of being able to set that employee's objectives so that the employee understands exactly what's expected of them, when it's expected, and what type of results are expected. So yeah, it's all of it ties together, and that's the efficiency part.
So you've given us a mouthful. The question that I have is, how long does this take? Do you also run into the problem of the owner who wants everything perfect, getting bogged down into analysis paralysis because it's not absolutely perfect the way they want to do it, so then they're not doing anything?
Yeah, and you have to set expectations. It's because it's not about perfection. It's about productivity. So perfection is the wrong P. The P word here is productivity. And when you get bogged down in perfectionism, there is no progress being made because it never will be perfect.
How often do you see that? Is that a frequent issue? Or if you were looking at this subject in general, what would you say is probably the biggest speed bump you end up running into that just grinds the process down to a halt?
Well, certainly perfectionism is one of those. The other is the unclear, and it goes back in what we mentioned earlier, but it's unclear expectations.
Okay.
And when there are unclear expectations, I, as an new employee, I may be going down one path. However, my reporting manager may have a totally different idea, but my reporting manager didn't make it clear. And now we have a divergence in our expectations. And then ultimately what that means is that there's poor communication. So you have a leader who does not know how to communicate clearly. And you have an employee who, as a new employee, they're probably a little bit reluctant to challenge that their new manager, their new direct report. And because of that, then they are divergent in what they're targeting as outcomes. But the communication piece may be, Dennis, the number one issue that stands in the way of efficiency.
Okay, so that's a big one. So the elements of clarity of communication, like for example, I'll give you one that I used to use in my organization. Was I was really clear that we had an open door policy, so that if there was something that was important to the process and there was a disagreement with the immediate supervisor, that they knew they could elevate it for an open discussion because we're all in this together. But the one rule I had was communicate and saying that this was a biggie, that I'd like to have input from our superior. So it was set up front. So there was no reason for any sense that somebody was going behind somebody's back.
Yeah.
What are some of the elements to create that kind of, I mean, some people find it threatening, but what do you tell your clients?
What I tell them is, if we have an open door conversation, what does open door mean? And what's the atmosphere has been set? Because if the atmosphere is one that, or the environment, the culture, if it's one that says, okay, there's an open door, but if I go through that open door, I'm getting my head chopped off.
Right.
Then open door doesn't mean anything. There's nothing positive about open door. So you have to be very definitive and intentional about what open door means. So does open door mean that I can come in and have an open discussion with you? Does it mean that if I come in with a situation, a challenge, a problem, whatever it is, are you expecting me as an employee to already have a potential solution? And we just need to talk through that solution so that we can level set on whether or not that solution is a good one, or do we need to rethink it, or can you give me some direction? What does open door mean? So open door has to come with has to be, particularly this day and time, it has to be pretty clear on what the expectation is if I come to my manager
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to talk about whatever it may be. It could be a challenge I'm having. It could be a problem I'm having. It could be an interaction with another employee that I'm dealing with. And is my manager open to having a transparent conversation in order to come up with a solution and not hold anything against me that will come back to bite me later?
Okay.
It truly has to be that door has to be one that's transparent.
So in this area of efficient operations, I've heard you identify three things so far in our conversation. Number one, the development of standing operating procedures. Number two, in which they don't have to be perfect. Number two is the necessity of clarity for all parts of the organization, which are kind of tightly tied to standard operating procedures. And third is the importance of the culture that's being developed. And I guess I did think of one more, and that was the whole item of importance of mission and vision on developing an effective marketing and sales team. Is that a good summary of kind of what we've talked about?
Yeah, that's a perfect summary. Yeah.
Is that a good summary? Okay. And so that would be all under the umbrella of item number two that you identified earlier on in the presentation.
Yes.
So we're kind of beginning to wrap up. So when we get together next month again, what's going to be our focal point for the next bit of wisdom tidbits from Charles Dents?
The next one it will be is strategies to exceed current growth limitations.
Okay.
And the things we talked about so far, yeah, they absolutely inhibit growth. but there's some more things that are maybe even more telling and even more impactful. And the reason I say that is because where we want to go with any business is how do we exponentially grow revenue? And that's what we need to talk about next.
Okay. So if somebody wants to get back in touch with you to zero in on these items, these 4 items we talked about this morning, how do they do that, Charles?
Well, the easiest way is to contact me through our company website, which is, I believe it's right here, our company website. So Xelantt.com, www.xelantt.com. And so that's the easiest way to schedule a free consultation with me. They can connect with me on LinkedIn. Just look me up as Charles Dents, Dents. And, certainly happy to connect that way as well.
All right. Fantastic. And for our viewers, I again want to thank you for joining us. And again, I'm Dennis Williams. And similarly, if you'd like to follow up for some additional innovative approaches to cash management strategies that I can guarantee you've never heard before, that will keep money in your pocket, be it an individual or a business, I'll just give you my email address is Dennis@cashmapconsulting.com, and my website address is www.cashmapapp.com. And we will look forward to seeing you next month on the 10th.
I look forward to it. Yeah, it'll be a blast.
It's been great getting to know you and getting your input on these really important issues for businesses. So we'll do it again next month.
Thank you, Dennis.
All right.